Hello, how are you guys? This is so fun.
Great. How are you?
Doing well. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Let me turn on my video. Oh, okay. People are coming in. This is like the first time I've done a big group thing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be hitting the admit button many times. Here we go. Where's everybody joining from? See, Carolyn, you're coming in from Australia, yeah? I think it's
1 a.m. Beautiful.
it's 1 a.m.
Good morning.
All right, you get a shout out for that. I was thinking about that because I think there's you and there might be a woman from Singapore joining. And I thought about it yesterday. I was like, oh, I didn't think of the call time for the people who are coming in from around the world. So shout out to you for showing up.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, we're going to give it another minute for everybody to join. And then we're just going to get going. This is super fun. Oh my goodness. You guys, I feel like a kid on Christmas. I'm like, oh, all these people, gotta let them in. Okay. Does everybody have your sheet printed out and a pen and your brain? We're good? Cool. All right. I think let's get started, and as more people pop in, I will just let them in. Welcome. First of all, guys, thank you so much for being part of the Podcast Launch Society. I didn't follow a formula. I was like, what would be super fun and what would be amazing and how could I connect more deeply with you guys? And I just from the bottom of my heart, just want to thank you for showing up and being part of the crew that came in and helped me get the word out about it. It has been so fun. So I was thinking about today, what could I offer you guys that would be amazingly juicy, both from a mindset perspective, but then bringing it down into like the strategy and the tactics of how you implement it within your marketing. And it's so funny because as I was thinking on it, the word that just kept coming up for me was power. And I'm a little bit my brain can be a little bit skeptical about like personal development. I'm like, oh, step into your power. Like if I hear it one more time. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, it is. It's power. And it's us like owning what our individual, whatever that is. And so we're going to start there today. And then we're going to look at, because it all starts from the way that you are showing up in your business and the way that you are showing up in your marketing. And your copy flows down from there. The power of your offers flows down from there. Everything flows down from that initial space of the way that you're thinking and being when you're in your business, when you're showing up on social media, when you're in your marketing. And so it was interesting because, I like to go to the Google because I was like, okay, what is the definition of power? And it was so interesting because one of the first definitions I found was the ability to act or produce an effect. Which when you think about the way that we show up in our business, it's with an intention, yeah? And oftentimes, we think that it's out of our control whether or not someone books a consult. We think it's out of our control whether or not someone has a particular experience when they're interacting with us on social media. But the truth is, when we actually show up fully, we have so much more agency to create that for our people. And so I just started thinking about what questions could I sort of pop into your brain today to just give you an awareness of the gaps where you're showing up less fully than is possible for you and what you know that is available to you, right? And then I want to spend some time coaching. We're going to have some time for you to answer those questions. And then I want to spend a lot of time just coaching on where those gaps are, because that is kind of where the magic happens. You guys know. So it was also interesting because as I was looking at it, the archaic definition of power is a force of armed men. And what's funny is I have a couple male clients, but I was like, they're not on the call today. So we're just going to talk as women. And we're going to talk about the way that we as women have often been conditioned to not show up. Like, I think about someone like my daughter who's 6 right now. And I got to say, like, I feel like I'm a pretty like rah, women power kind of person. And it was like a month or 2 ago, but she was playing with her brother and she said something like, oh, well, like the girl's supposed to be quiet now. And I'm like, what kind of Netflix bullshit? Like, what did I put on that like got this into your head, right? And so you just think about the compound effect of the messages that we get over time. And then we're wanting to show up in our business and we're like having to sort of shed a lot of the things that we just picked up like sponges in society. And so if there's anything, because I oftentimes when I'm coaching women and they want to be showing up more fully in their marketing, there's thoughts like, I don't want to be too much. Too much is a big one, right? Like, what does that even mean? I don't want to be too boastful, right? We're like taught that it's like somehow glorious to be super humble, which like oftentimes just means watering ourselves down. It's just some bullshit. And so as I was thinking about it, I feel like what a lot of women end up doing is we end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? We're like, well, I don't want to be that. So like we end up tweaking our messaging. We end up tweaking what it is that we're doing. So we're like, oh, I don't want to offend. I don't want to be too much, whatever it is, right? And every single time we do that, every time we have a moment where those thoughts come in and then that creates us editing our content or that creates us like choosing to like position the message in a slightly different way, the compound effect of that is the compound effect of us just like reducing the power in which we show up in our business. It's reducing the power in which our message is able to get out to our audience. And it also reduces the power of the dollars in our bank account. So I wanted to start by just asking you to consider the question of where are you showing up? Like and then whatever it is that you are. I know we've got like nutritionists, coaches, financial planners, right? Like where are you showing up like and then whatever your craft is versus whatever your craft is, whoever it is that you serve, right? And so I want you to think about like, where are you showing up, whether it's in your marketing, whether it's in your business, anywhere where you're representing yourself, where you think you're just a option versus the option. And I want to just like pause for a minute and I want you to actually take the time to answer that. Ooh, a concrete example. Yeah. Okay. So like a concrete example would be like, where does Catherine, like if I would ask myself this, I would ask, where am I showing up as a business coach versus the business coach, like the best possible business coach you could ever hire for someone who is starting their first business, right? I don't think I'm the business coach for someone who's running like $1 billion company. I don't think I'm that business coach, right? But for my particular ideal client, it's 100% deep in my bones. I am the person. I am the best possible person they could work with. And I own that. Say 30 more seconds. All right. So hopefully at this point, and this is like you could spend, I would actually maybe take some time later. You could probably journal pages of this, and it's going to show you, you're going to get tremendous awareness over all the different places. And maybe that ends up being like you ask, like, where is it in my Instagram stories? Where is it in my emails? Like, where is it in my interactions with my neighbors when I'm talking about my business, right? Like, it would just be interesting for you to explore all of the different nooks and crannies of where that shows up for you. Okay. And then I just want to we're going to move on to like content and offers in a minute, but I wanted to offer just a fun little exercise that I have found to be very useful for both myself and some of my clients. And I find oftentimes that my clients are either very cognitive, they're big thinkers, they can access their thoughts very quickly, but some of them are more feelers. And so when I'm like, oh, okay, like, what are you thinking? Like, what's going on there? It's a lot harder for them to access like exactly what's going on in their brain. And so we got to get there, right? And so I want you to think right now, if you are someone who is more like you're a thinker, maybe there is a thought for you that really feels that you can 100% believe it right now when you are fully in your power, right? Like, what are the thoughts that you'll be thinking? And then if you can't get 100% on board with them, just start opening yourself up to like, it's possible that dot, 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 and then fill in whatever the thoughts would be. And it's interesting because I am a big thinker, but I'm also a big feeler. And so one of the ways that I have found to be the fastest way for me to shift, because if you guys follow me, you know I have many children. And so there's some days where like the baby poops on me. And then I'm like, all right, it's like time to go show up fully in my power in my business, right? And so sometimes it's nice to have something that helps us shift in very quickly, something that helps us have an experience very quickly. And for me, one of the things that I have found very useful is to associate when I am in my fullest power and when I am in my fullest energy, what color am I? And what texture is it? And so it's interesting because I think for me, what I found is like the answer is red. Like I'm someone that, yeah, I get angry at certain things within systems. And it's like a divine rage where I'm like, yep, if it's not truth and justice, it's a hard no. And so I think about channeling that color. I think about feeling it into my body and I pull it in. Red might not be your color, right? I think I see Erin is in from Atlanta. Erin is pink. And she's like a corporate marketer. She does keynote speeches all the time. And she can own a boardroom, but she also is very powerfully feminine. Like you can come into a space with her and just, it feels like you're getting a warm hug from a cozy blanket, right? She's like, that is her unique thing. And when I think about her, it's like full on pink energy. And so it's not surprising that when I was working with her on like what her branding was going to be, yeah, that color came in real strong. And I don't want you guys to spin out. If you're just in the beginning part of your business, you don't need a brand palette. You don't need specific colors. This is more just an exercise for you to like experience it within your business. Or I don't know if my client Nicole is on here today, but she is someone who is like, she's very spiritual. She's an inner voice facilitator. She's comes from like Just Lively, if anyone follows like that sort of brand of the coaching world. And she's like super bright yellow. She's like sunshine and it's very light. And so power isn't this like thing that we think of as being this like masculine force of men, right? It's like whatever your unique energy is in its fullest form, what is that? And I've oftentimes found associating it with a color and texture and then feeling that into your body. You can get to that space. It allows you to like, maybe you come home from work or maybe your kid poops on you and then you're able to just sit down at your desk and have an experience where you ground yourself and you remember like who you are and who you're showing up for your clients to be. All right, let's talk about content. Here is where content goes to die. And this is, it all flows down from the way that you're thinking about yourself, right? And so I oftentimes find when people are not fully owning who it is that they are and who it is that they are intentionally representing in their business, they end up they either write something and then they have the thought like, oh, it's too direct. I shouldn't be that direct. And they edit it. Or they just write from the beginning with the thought of like, I don't want to be too direct. I don't want to be too much. I don't want to be too offensive. And they water down their message. Okay. Another one is that you're writing or editing, worrying about what other people think, which if you have listened to my podcast, it is your thoughts. Welcome. But you've got to think about, you've got to just be focused 100% on your ideal client and the person that you're speaking to. And anyone else that could come into the room, it doesn't matter. So I find a lot of times with people when they're starting their new business, they're worried about what their old industry colleagues will think. They're worried about what their Aunt Daisy is going to think, right? And they start writing their content from that place, and it waters down their message. And so the greatest work that you can do, and I want you to think about where you're doing this, come get coaching on it afterwards. If you find that you're doing, if there's like a particular person in mind, if there's a particular group of people that you end up thinking about a lot, and like, let's clear that out of you so that you're able to just show up for your ideal client, focused totally on them. And here's another one. When you're posting just because it's on your to-do list and it's a Wednesday afternoon and you said you had to do it. And here's the thing. This is where it like differs depending on where you're at. There's some people who are my hustler people, and I need to work with you guys on not white knuckling your way through action. And then there's some of you guys that like, you have that internal manager that's like, it's okay, just take a break. And the work with you guys, if you have an internal manager over there, is we've got to get you showing up even when no matter what, you've got to be posting. But I want you to think about, oftentimes, if you're posting from a feeling of obligation, I want you to just feel how obligation feels like in your body when you know you have to do something. I see my client Linda on the call. I'm going to call you out, Linda. We were coaching the other day about like when she gets to $1 million, and she just had this moment where she was like, oh, you know what? I wouldn't feel like I had to be part of like the gift exchange. Like there's this gift exchange at Christmas that she doesn't really like to do. Just like, it's not a money thing. She just feels obligated, right? Like feel that in your body. And so that's the same way when we're showing up in our business from obligation. Obligation is not power. And so I want to offer this shift. If you're someone who finds that you oftentimes, when you are showing up, it's from obligation, there's a subtle shift, and it is just to going into producing from a feeling of commitment. And that's when it's just like, I am just a person that I am committed to this. And I think this is where I've got it, because I've got many of you and I don't know all of your brains. But if you are a perfectionist and you tend to put too much on your to-do list, it becomes the work to look at, where am I putting too much on my plate, and what can I 100% honor? Because I don't want to be showing up from obligation. I want to be showing up from commitment, because that's who I am and I'm committed to my business. So I want you thinking about that too. Because the feeling of commitment, it really does feel commitment versus obligation. Commitment is a feeling of being powerful. And then the question that I want you guys to think on is, how would your content be different if you 100% owned being the, whatever your craft is, whatever your field of expertise is? And that might have already shown up in your previous answer, but I'm going to give you guys one more minute right now to think on that. All right, let's give it 30 more seconds. Danita, I also think it's very funny. You're showing up as Amy Latta. Do you know that? I was just looking at the attendees. I was like, oh, Amy's in my call. And I'm like scrolling through. I was like, nope, that's not Amy. That's Danita.
Well, I don't think I can change it without leaving the meeting.
Don't leave the meeting. Just, it's okay. I know who you are.
Okay.
All right. Now let's spend some time thinking about making offers. And here's where offers go to die. DM me to get started. I want you to think if you're doing this. Let me know if you want to connect. Let me know if you want to chat, like anything like that. Like I want you to think about when you, starting from where we started of like when you're in your fullest power, what is that color? What is that texture? What is that energy? And then I want you to think about saying like, DM me to get started. Let me know. It's gonna be great, right? There's a huge disconnect. And so if you're doing anything like that, it might totally be that this is just not in your awareness, because I think there's a whole rash. There's like an epidemic of this on the internet. So you might just be seeing other people doing it, and so you're doing it. So that's fine, totally not a problem. But I want you to think about, what would it look like if you were 100% owning, whether it's your power thought, whether it's that power color and the vibrancy of like the energy, the texture, whatever, like how might your offers change? And oftentimes I find when it's the DM me to get started or that let me know kind of thing, that there's either thoughts you're having about yourself, like not owning that you're the person, or there's thoughts that you have about selling. So if you are finding any of those thoughts, this is a good time. Have an intention. We're going to open for coaching after we finish this part. And whatever is like coming up in your brain, let's scrub it out. The other thing, you guys, we got to talk. Are you using free as a selling point? Because I want you to think, people come in the way that you call them. And so if you're like, join my free Facebook group, and you're like really like trying to sell that it's free, if you're like putting free in all capital letters, how many times, you guys cannot unsee this, you'll see it all over the internet. Those people are calling in the people who only want free things. As a business, that's not really an ideal client. Your ideal client wants to pay you. Your ideal client doesn't just want the free thing. And so I'm not saying don't give free things, right? Like I love doing this call. I love posting. I love showing up on Instagram. I love doing my podcast, but I'm never like, hey guys, come listen to my podcast. It's free, right? And so you have to think about, if you're ever trying to sell something with using free as a selling point, you are calling in people that only want free. Yes, yes, yes. All right, Erin, I don't know if you've been selling free, but we could talk about that in session this week. My client Erin's popping up into the chats. All right. If you're using free as a selling point though, here's the thing. You can't just like tweak it and stop doing it anymore, because the reason you're doing it is something you're thinking in your brain. And so if you are doing that, I want you to spend a little bit of time thinking about, like, where are there thoughts about people paying you the amount of what it is that you're selling, right? Because if you don't fully believe that like what you're selling is an amazing deal and that they're like winning the lottery, you would want to then sell something more from the lens of free. Or is there something about money? Like I coach with a lot of people and they end up thinking like, oh, like people have to work so hard for this. I don't want to like take their money, right? Like it ends up being weird money thoughts. So whatever stuff is popping up in your head, it is totally normal. Let's just take some time in a minute to scrub it out. Rachel Smitty, thank you for coming. I'm going to send a recording after the call. So you go to your 9 to 5. Thank you for joining us. All right. So I want you to think about your offers as your content and your post. You're like the screenwriter of an amazing movie. You know how like movies at the end, it always comes, it's at the end and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? The characters are in trouble. There's got to be a resolution. I don't know what it's going to be, right? And so if you're thinking about your content as offering some delicious piece of value for your people, and then you're like ending it with like, let me know, DM me to get started. It's like if you were the screenwriter and there were like these characters and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know, the bus is coming. And then it's just like, and then they jumped out of the way, right? Like you want to think about carrying the energy of what it is that you're doing all the way through the post and what it is that you're offering. Here's just another little tip. No jargon. No, like, seriously, guys, how many coaches, like no one is waking up being like, I think I want to take back my life today. No one's saying that. Stop saying, DM me if you're ready to take back your life. No one's saying that. So you've got to think about like, what is it that my people want? What is some small nugget that I can offer them and make offers from that space? You'll see, I like tie it into the content of what I'm doing. And I write something very specific. I'm looking at, this is the problem, this is the solution. This is like, I'm telling you, I'm showing you your mind. And then I'm tying the offer that I'm making into exactly what it is. And so oftentimes, like even when I coach clients that come to me and they have sales stuff, it's always interesting because I'm like, do you realize how hard I sell? And they're like, no, I don't even see it. It's like, because I 100% believe I'm like the best person. And I'm always just tying it in. It's almost like you're just reading a novel, right? Like nothing is jarring about when you're ending with the offer because it all flows together really nicely. Okay, I want you to think about how your offers, oh, I put content, guys, sorry, cross out the content, put offers. How would it be different if you 100% believed that the most valuable thing my people can do is hire me? Here's the thing, if they don't hire you, they don't solve their problem. Read all the free content in the world. So let's take a minute to think on that. And let's do some coaching. Oh, repeat the prompt. I sure can repeat the prompt, Amanda Darby. Okay. How would your offers be different if you 100% believed the most valuable thing they can do is hire me? Because I often find this is a disconnect when people are putting a lot of value into their marketing, but then they're making it more of DIY. And then they're calling in people who want free things and they're calling in people who want like do-it-yourselfers. Right? Like we don't accidentally get people in our audience. Literally, like what we're writing is always calling them in. All right, let's give it 30 more seconds. All right. So here's the deal. I'm going to open it just for open coaching right now. And I do not have this in a webinar format. So it's going to be a little Hunger Games. You're going to unmute yourself. Whoever talks first, get your crossbow. And then I want you to think on, I mean, what if there's anything within your marketing that's coming up, but in particular, like if you had answers in like the why you aren't showing up as the person, and there's something you're like, ooh, I would like to clear that out. It's a great thing to work on right now. And then also if you're thinking about, so you've got an idea of looking at your content, like how would it be different if, how would your offers be different if, and then look at your answers there and then check in with your mind, check in with your brain and be like, ooh, but where is it arguing? Because if there's anywhere where it's arguing, which it for sure is, because if it weren't arguing, you would already be showing up that way, right? So like look at where the gaps are.
I'll go.
All right, let's do it, Miss Danita. How are you?
I'm good. My brain argues that I'm the only coach for that. Like, not necessarily for my ideal client. I think where I get a little bit tripped up is when I'm like on social media or something.
Yeah.
I think I'm not talking to a specific person. That's maybe one thing.
You're a dirty liar. You help Christian women with shame, yeah?
Yes.
It's a very specific person.
Yes, but when I go into social media, I'm thinking of like a lot of people in my mind. You know what I mean?
Why are you doing that?
I think everyone struggles with this in some way or form.
Sure.
So I think that's why my brain goes there. But when you said like you 100% believed the most valuable thing your clients can do is hire you, my brain's like, well, is it?
Okay. So which one do you want to, because it sounds like you've got a couple things going on. One is like you have, and this is actually, I don't think I said this, but like I was thinking I should talk about this. This is why we can't, when people get hung up on their like I help statement on their Instagram bio, I'm like, guys, this is not the thing, right? You can have your perfectly crafted statement, but if your brain isn't 100% on board, it comes in to write your copy and then you're just like talking to everybody. And so like check in, like let's start there. What's happening?
When I go to write my copy?
Yeah, because you're saying that you have decided this is my person. You have a specific person, right? Like a Christian woman who's struggling with shame is a very different person than like I don't know.
Yeah.
Some regular woman in her high exec corporate job that doesn't go to church. It's very different.
Yeah, I think I kind of stay on the high level, like instead of getting into like a specific like one little thing that is an effect of shame.
Yeah.
So then I tend to talk in generalities, and I mean, I think my copy is good. It could just be so much better.
Yeah, but we got to look at why aren't you getting more specific? Because you know there's a specific person you want to help.
Yeah, I think it's just this thought that like there's so many ways I could help, right? Like there's so many different avenues.
There's so many people I could help.
So many people in so many ways, right? And so it's just a matter of like choosing. And I do notice that my brain doesn't want to just choose.
Yeah. Okay. So like, would you say the thought is like, I can help everybody, or what is it?
Yeah, like I can help anyone, right? Like everyone struggles with this in some way.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's just the I'm not enough sort of feeling. And then it shows up in a million areas of our lives.
Totally. Shame is basically, right? I think at the root of anything, it's like we all have shame. If we could just get rid of shame, the world would be much better. You can help everyone. You can help anyone. But I want to ask, why did you choose Christian women in specific?
Because that's me and that's my story. And I think there's shame about having shame because, you know, you have faith in God and it's like the opposite of faith. Shame is like the opposite of faith. So mostly just because it's my story, but I think also I just notice that conservative or Christian people seem to struggle even more with shame. Like the expectations are higher or something like that.
Mhm.
So that's why I chose that audience.
Okay. So here's the thing. And I think like, I know that Danita comes from my corner of the coaching world. I don't like, not everybody is, but so I can talk to you. Like Stacy, my coach, recommends like, yeah, if you want, you can just be like nicheless up until 100K. Right. And so
Yeah.
I want to just ask you, like, where can you get your brain more on board with? Does it just want to stay more general till you get like to the six-figure, like multiple six-figure mark? Or do you want to decide to go all in on this particular person?
I think I want to go all in. I think it's just almost like a habit of like my brain always goes to pricing and niche, right? And I feel really good about the niche, and I've just been sort of like thinking more like, how can I get more specific, right? And I don't know why when you said like you're 100%, you 100% believe that you're the coach. Maybe also part of it is like there are so many coaches, and once you get into coaching, we coach on all the things, right? So yeah, I want to go all in on that person.
How does that feel when you're thinking that?
I think it's kind of in the vein of doubt or confusion.
Yeah. And from that, what are you doing?
Yeah, I just like think a lot and plan a lot. It's so fun.
like in your head, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then you're like really tired, but then you look and you're like, oh, it's been like a lot in the
I know,
day.
I feel like I've done so much inside this world, inside my head.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I'm like, oh, I have all these ideas, but I don't actually create much in the world that's like an actual thing. So
yeah, because you're thinking you can help everybody. And if you
Yeah.
can't help everybody, like why wouldn't you be? But why is that actually a thought error?
Just because it doesn't feel, it doesn't give me a feeling that's productive, where I actually take action and, I'm confident in my offers or whatever.
Yeah. If you took the time to get like very specific and you decided to go all in on writing only to your specific person, what do you think the impact of that would be?
Well, what kept coming up in your prompts was that it would be a lot more direct, like really a lot more powerful, right?
Yes.
And maybe it's just like a general fear of like, I see this in my clients that they're just afraid to take action because then, they could fail or whatever, right? I sort of sense that that's the space I'm in. It's just like, oh, if I do like get really specific, then it could totally bomb, right? But I don't even think that logically. I think that it actually will be so much better.
Yeah. And it's just like, you've got to just like those thoughts you've got to recognize. I love thinking about, I forget where I first heard this, but like the air that we breathe is 92% nitrogen. We only need 8%. That's the oxygen. The rest of it, like the nitrogen is basically like doubt. I could like sit all day and it could be like, I don't know, Catherine, like you were in tech. You should probably be coaching tech people. Right? Like I could listen to that. But I think of this when you decide, and I don't like, this could become a whole thing around drama about niches. If you are just starting out, you don't need a niche. You got to look for where's the drama. But if you're making the decision to go all in, I'm going all in on this, you cannot allow the I can help everyone's. Because what's going to happen, I think of it, if anyone remembers reading the Odyssey, Homer's The Odyssey, when he went into the ocean, he told his men, he's like, men, tie me to the mast. I want to hear the sirens, but I don't want to dive over off the ship and go swimming, right? And so you've got to think when you're making a decision like that, it is 100% very normal, right? Like you feel really good in the moment where you make the decision. And then right after that come all the hints of like, well, what about this? What about that? I don't know. What about this, right? Those are the siren songs. And I want you to think your job is like you're getting tied to the mast of your ship and you're like, I can hear the siren songs, but I am not diving off the ship. That is your work. You see it?
Okay, so good. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
All right. That was good. What else we got?
I have a sort of, I have a related one, so I think that might tie in nicely, around niche drama.
Perfect.
Thinking like, why am I not the coach? Why am I a coach? And my brain wants to tell me, well, it's because you don't have a niche. So how could you be like the coach if you're not like the coach of something specifically?
Okay. So what is the, like, tell me a little bit about you and who you are and why you made a decision to be general right
So I tend to coach, or sort of broadly coach, ambitious women who have multiple priorities, lots going on in their lives. But other than that, I haven't niched down to anything specifically, because I'm in the Stacey Bayman world of, don't do it until you're a six-figure earner and you've kind of gotten the experience that sort of dictates, okay, this is what I want my niche to be. So that's sort of where I'm at with all of
now?
that.
What do you want to do? Do you want to niche down, or do you enjoy what you're doing right now?
I enjoy what I'm doing right now, but it definitely shows up in the marketing.
Okay. How? Like, what's happening?
Because I think my thoughts are that once I'm working with people, I'm definitely the coach for them, because whatever it is they have going on, I can absolutely coach them through it. But when I'm marketing, I get caught up in the, well, what should I talk about here? Because I don't know exactly who the person is that I'm speaking to or the problems that they have until I'm already working with them.
But you are also a dirty, like, you guys are all, your brains are dirty liars. Because you just said that you work with ambitious women that have multiple priorities, yeah? Do you need that person?
Yeah.
Like, do you need that person in a Zoom call to know, like, what's going on with them?
No.
Yeah.
At least not with the sum of the things.
Yeah. So, like, just, I don't know, take 15 seconds right now. Give me like a handful of things for sure you know 100%. Like, this is your person and exactly what's happening in their brain and their life right now.
So my person, like I said, definitely has multiple priorities. So they're trying to manage it all and view it as not sort of pulling away from each, but rather like working synergistically, or they're trying to figure out what they want apart from what they think that they should want.
Yeah.
And they're trying to navigate setting and hitting goals from a place that actually feels good, from a place of self-acceptance, rather than thinking like, I'll be happy when I hit this, or once I do this, then I'll finally be successful.
Yeah. So it sounds like you know exactly who you're talking to and exactly what's going on with them.
Okay, yes.
Do you think that you could like break those things down into like little subcategories and talk about them in like a dozen different ways?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that I think that my marketing is strong, but I definitely got tripped up when you said, why are you thinking you're a coach rather than the coach? Like, as soon as you said it, my brain was like, oh, that's the problem. Like, I think I'm a really good coach. I don't think that I'm the coach.
Why don't
But
you
it
think you're
still
the
wants to
coach
say that
for
it's
your ideal
extra.
client?
I guess I do, but my brain is like, well, once they meet me, then they'll know. But like, I don't know how to say it to them before they reach out to me.
Why do you have to tell them? Why can't you just embody it?
Yeah, that's true. I could.
And I just
I
want
could
to
just do
like,
that.
I think that everyone could benefit from this. It's like we tell ourselves that we don't know, and I don't know. Like, you know, if you're my client, you're not allowed to say it in session because when you tell yourself you don't know, like you don't know who you're talking to. I just want you to see what I did was I just was like, but what do you know? I literally just pulled you this way, and like a whole like pile of wisdom just flowed out of you. Like you didn't even need to think about it. But when we're telling ourselves that we don't know, we're like a turtle on our back with our feet in the air, like spinning around on our shell, like, I don't know what to say. It really is.
Right.
Like, whenever
Yeah.
you find yourself saying, I don't know, just bring yourself back to like, what do I know 100% about my person? And if you start to think you're too general, ask yourself, what are the common threads?
It's funny that this is the thing too, because when you were talking about not writing, like DM me to get started or something like that, originally what I wanted to get coaching on was that I was telling myself, well, I don't know how to do it because Stacy says don't put like traction steps in between, like don't say like link in my bio or anything like that. And so I've always used like, oh, just message me. And so it ends up being that formulaic, like if you're ready to blank, like message me, not to get started, but like essentially the same idea. And I was like, okay, why am I telling myself that I don't know what the answer is there? Like I'm telling myself like that's what I need coaching on. I was like, no, I can figure that out. Let me get to the real problem, which is I don't know who I'm speaking to. But now I see that it's the same issue.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like when you're owning that that is who you're like, I'm that person for my people. I know exactly what their problem is and I can talk to them. Then every single post that you have, if it's like some small part of when you have multiple priorities, this is how it shows up. Let me show you. And then the offer, it's like, it's not just like a DM me to get started. It's like, if you like, right, if this is happening and you pull it back to the beginning of what you talked about and you're ready to have a different experience on your Wednesday morning of whatever, like message me.
Yeah.
It flows a lot easier.
Okay.
You see it?
Yeah.
You got
Even if the wording is close, the energy is much different.
Yes. And this is like, I want you guys to think about, because there's sometimes, especially like I'm in a different spot in my business, I think, than like most people on this call, which is like, at this point, I'm in a place where I want friction between me and my person. Like I want to filter for my best clients, but I want you guys to know up until $100,000, I was like, who are you? I will coach you. What time? That's fine. I coached until like 10 o'clock at night. I was so grateful to have anybody. Right. And so I think there is that, like, and this is why, like, you got to look when you're like trying to look at what other people are doing, because you don't know exactly what's going on with them. You want to reduce the friction, but you also want to keep the energy like totally like for the experience of your person. You're a screenwriter. You're writing a really good movie for them. Just make the ending solid. All right.
Thank you.
Can I get coached next?
Bring it.
Okay, mine's along the same lines. Similar lines, but the niche. And I haven't really even, can you hear me? Because I'm not on the screen, so I wasn't sure.
I can hear you. You're a little bit like
Okay.
choppy, but it's okay.
Oh, okay.
If it stays choppy, we might need to figure something out, but.
Okay. So similar around the, not knowing who I'm talking to, because I am very general. I just started my business. I was doing 4 free clients. I just got my first paid client yesterday, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So when I'm marketing, like I'm keeping it general just because I'm just starting. But then I don't have like a person in mind. And I know you're supposed to try to do that when you write a post. So yeah, I sometimes feel, so I'm writing about everything because I'm like keeping it general.
Do you post, do you like write to military men who are like coming out of the army?
No.
No.
Okay, so I have I'm starting to form an idea of like, I want to work like mental health is kind of like the way I see in the last few weeks. I can see that's the way I'm going. But then that's still super broad.
No. When you're telling yourself it's super broad, what's happening?
I don't know what to focus on.
Yeah. And then what's happening? Anyone seeing a theme on this call?
I don't know, like I do focus on one thing and then post about it, but then overall I feel a bit like I don't know who I'm talking to. I can usually hunker down when I do one post and write about that one thing, but the overall energy behind it all is always like, I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah. Which like, I'm going to ask you, we're going to move on to someone else because I want you to just see you're doing the turtle thing. I want you to spend a few minutes asking yourself, what do I know?
Okay.
What do I for sure know about the person that I'm talking to? And then your work is just like, of course, like we have brains. It's very useful for them to go into confusion because then we don't have to take action. But you do 100% know. I want you to listen, and you know it's mental health. You know it's not military men, right? So like, is it just women? Like, what are the qualities? What is everything specifically that you do know? And then you've got to be like, it's the same thing. You got to tie yourself to the ship. And remember, you made those decisions. And so when your brain is telling you that it's too broad, that's a siren song. Yeah. And so if you,
I definitely see the theme.
Yeah. So if you spend a couple minutes and you really take the time to look at like, what do I know?
Mhm.
You can jump back in after the next person, but right now it is just like, that's your work. You've already heard your work. Do you feel like that's true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I get coach?
Hello.
It's similar.
Oh,
So, but
geez.
it's not, I promise. But it has something to do with niche. So you asked, why don't I show up fully in my power?
Yeah.
And I think it's because I committed to who I truly want to work with. And it was something I was not committing to because I think that the C of the person I want to work with makes it so that I can't show up fully in my power. So I didn't realize until you said this, but who I want to work with, my thoughts about them, I'm realizing I put them on a pedestal. And so I'm like, if I'm working with anyone, like for sure they should work with me. But who I truly want to work with, like my ideal client, I'm like, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know, like, I don't know that I know I can coach them, but I don't know if they should pick me. So I don't show up fully in my power
Why should they pick you?
because I can help them get the result they want. I'm a really
Why?
good coach
Yeah. Like, what is it about you in particular? Like, why are you perfect for them?
because I know what they're going through and I'm really good at holding the space and thinking about them and helping them get to the result, making it inevitable. Like if what they want to do, if this is what they want to do, they need to hire me. Like I do know that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't stay very long. Like when I think about them, like my ideal client, and then I'm going to post, I'm like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's like our brain can always take us one of two ways. And I like to think of it, I want you to see what I just did with you is like your brain was going into the tumbleweeds. It's like, we're going this way now. We're going to just drive off the road into the weeds. And so I could have coached you on like, why are those thoughts not like, why aren't they true? Well, like what's going on? What's happening there?
Mm-hmm.
There's also a road in our brain that just gets us right onto the highway. And the
Mm-hmm.
moment I asked you, like, why are you perfect? Why are you exactly that person? Once you see again, guys, there was no gap. There was no confusion. It was like
Yeah.
immediately available. The thoughts were immediately available to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so like, just look for if in your self-coaching, you're a person that looks for all the things that like where your brain argues and then you're like trying to disprove them. And we want to always do that, right? But I also find there's some people that like, if you spend too much time over there, it's like you're in the weeds and then your coaching pulls you this way versus what I just did there is I got you all the way over here and then we look for where your brain argues a little bit. Do you see you get like, right? We could go this way or we could go this way.
Okay. So
every day,
yeah.
you're asking yourself that question. Why am I
Okay.
perfect? Why,
Okay.
why specifically do they want me? For sure. And every
Okay.
day, even if it's the same thing every day, and I want you to think about this too, like when you're cultivating thoughts on purpose, I think of it a little bit like you have to do it with intention, right? Not like, oh, I did these answers yesterday, so I'm gonna just like write them again, right? That's not how neural pathways work. It becomes the same thing as like for anyone who's partnered, like if your partner leaves and you like kiss them goodbye, but it's like you're totally phoning it in, right? You're like doing the action, but you're not infusing it with the intention of like deep love for that person. Versus like, oh, I'm sitting down to like rewire my brain and I'm going to like deeply feel this thought into my bones. Like neuroscience shows us that like holding a thought for 30 seconds and feeling it into your body is literally what's required to build new neural pathways. And so if you're someone who's like trying to like say mantras or you're like trying to say thoughts, but you're not taking the time to like deeply feel those into your body, it's like the difference between giving your partner a kiss goodbye and like barely remembering that they left and like having the intention before they step out the door of like, I'm going to deeply connect with this human that I really love, right? There's going to be a very different experience of that goodbye kiss. There's going to be a very different experience of you cultivating new thoughts when you have the intention of like feeling them deep into your bones.
Okay. Gosh, that's exactly what I needed. Thank you.
You are so welcome. All
I have
right,
a question.
Oh, I love it. I love it. The Hunger Games. Everyone's got their crossbow. Bring it. What you got, Raquel?
Money. Okay, so the free offer that you said, like, are you making the free offer? I'm totally 100% like going like free.
Yeah.
And so I asked myself why, and I come back to this thought like, and I didn't really realize that it was there, but if they want to, like, I'm working with moms that want to make more money, and one of the ways to start doing that is paying on their debt first. So, or like working on paying debt, because like the empowerment of paying off money and doing all of that mind work on money first is really useful for my clients. But so I have this thought that I came to, like, if they want to pay off their debt and make more money, like, how can I ask them to pay me a bunch of money first? Like, that came up, and I'm like, I like, where do I like go to work on that? And I realize like that's totally ingrained in me, because like I have trouble like thinking about like paying for high level coaching like myself, for myself, and I'm like, I can't pay that much money. I don't have enough clients coming in and money coming in to pay for that. I have to do all that stuff first. And like that's totally what my people are doing. Like they have to pay off the debt first before they can afford for me to help them. And okay, those were my thoughts. So
Yeah, but is that true that that's what they have to do?
no.
Why?
That's not what I did. Like I totally invested in someone helping me, like what I thought was like a plan to pay off, like to work on like paying off my debt and like how to like change my career. But really it was just like all of my mind drama around money.
Mm-hmm.
And I invested in my own coaching
Okay.
in order to get me there.
Yeah. And so so it sounds like you actually were in the position, you're telling yourself that like you're not, because you're like not doing certain things, but when you actually look at where your person was, you were there and you decided to make the investment.
Yeah.
Why did you do that, and what was the impact of
it? Because I was looking at someone who was in a place where I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
As I say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need to show them where I'm at.
Yeah.
And like they had so much belief in where they were and how far they'd come, and I'm like, I want to do that too. And yeah. So I guess it was me making a leap of faith, even though all these people were telling me, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
I went and did it anyways.
Did you create
I guess maybe there's a thought. I feel like there's this thought like, oh, I'm the only person that's going to do that though.
It's just a thought error.
Right.
It seems like what you're doing is like, you're looking because you're like, oh, like there's people who are like higher or whatever, right? But you're where your ideal client wants to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want you to think about like, if I invest with like a multi-million-dollar coach, if I was spending all my days being like, I don't know if my people want to hire me because like there's people in the world who are like so far beyond where I am, and I can't market until I'm like a multi-millionaire. I would be sitting on the couch. And I realized this was something I had to coach myself on, because I came from tech. And so I know a lot of people in tech who are very successful entrepreneurs, and they've raised very large VC rounds. They've done a ton of things. And when I wanted to start like a podcast about being an entrepreneur, I saw all those thoughts come up of like, your old tech network's going to look at this and they're going to like judge that. And I'm like, oh, that's me. Those are my gaps in belief. And now I just get to look at like, but when I think about where I am, and I'm so proud of what I've accomplished, and I look at where my ideal client is, I know I'm 100% can help them. And if I was like spending time focusing on, right, like the people that I knew who had raised like very large VC rounds, my multi-million, right? Like if I were looking at that, telling myself I wasn't good enough, I wouldn't be showing up for you guys.
Yeah. Okay.
That doesn't mean you don't keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't grow from the place of telling yourself you're not good enough yet.
Okay.
So
yes.
I want you to spend some time today thinking about why, like, think about the experience of someone who's in your audience, because they're coming in looking at you as an example of what's possible. And your brain isn't allowing you to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe set a timer for 20 minutes, and it's going to make your brain hurt, and it's going to feel uncomfortable, and it's not going to want to look for that long. And just keep asking yourself, like, why is it the case that you are an example of what's possible for your people? You're exactly where you should be.
I can do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we're at time, but let's do one more.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
So I might be at like a different, I'm very early on, still kind of visioning my business, and I want to run an event planning company. And I did event planning in all kinds of other capacities and 9-to-5s. And so as I was like creating my website and coming up with copy and marketing, my brain's just like, well, you can't sell because you have no portfolio to show anyone for events that you've done. And you can't sell off like stock photos because like people want to see what you create, and you don't have any photo evidence of creating things like on your own in this container. So I'm like, okay, well then I'm convincing myself I should offer my services for free and like plan free events.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good. Yeah. So you're putting yourself in an impossible position, because you're telling yourself the only way I can get clients is by having had clients, and I have no clients yet. So I better just work for free. How do you think other businesses start with no clients?
They just do. Like, I don't know. I think what you said earlier of like, why do you have to tell them? Like, why can't you just embody it kind of stuck with me. Like, why do I have to show them? Why can't I just embody it? But when it comes to doing that in practice, that sounds so much harder. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
This is like actually like going back to the last coaching that I gave Raquel. It's like your work is probably every single day, like sitting down and asking yourself why you're 100% qualified and why everything you ever did made you like a perfect candidate to do what you're doing. Because you're saying you have done event planning in the past, yeah?
I have, yes.
Okay.
I just feel like I have I can't pull photos from my 9-to-5 events because they're not my photos and be like, oh, here's what I did. But I feel like I need evidence.
Yeah.
Like,
it's actually interesting that you're even saying that. Like, is that true that you couldn't?
I don't know. Maybe.
Because like you would have to look at like, is that actually possible? Like I know people for sure. My last job at my 9-to-5, we sold custom software, and there's definitely developers I knew from there that just went off and started their own thing. And they took as their portfolio pieces what they had built when they were at the company they were at before. I have another friend, and her husband does like he was at a big time up in an ad agency, and he just took his portfolio of what he'd done at the ad agency, and he just like, those are examples on his website. And he took his whole network with him. So like,
Yeah.
is that true that you can't use those? Like, let's first look there.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know is the real answer.
How
Probably not.
How
Yeah. I would just have to ask. And I like have plenty of people I could ask.
What is your worst case if you just decide that like you're going to show the events that you actually did plan before and you put them on your site?
Like literally someone's like, hey, those are ours. Can you just take them down?
Yeah. And what do you do?
Just take them down? I don't know.
I just want you to see that like, it's like that ask for forgiveness, not for permission, because where you're at is like, oh, I should probably like reach out and like ask. If it really wouldn't be a big deal, like,
Yeah.
It's that. But so that's one, that's like a very tactical thing. But then I also want you thinking about like, why are you 100% qualified for people to be paying you buckets of money right now for event planning? Can you find a lot of evidence of that?
Yeah, I have that. And then I start doing the thing of like, well, there are people who've been doing it for longer and are well established. So why would they hire me?
Yeah, which is exactly, I want you to remember the coaching where I'm just like, if I was like not showing up because I was waiting to be a multi-million-dollar, like, right? I would be putting myself between a rock and a hard place. It would be very hard.
Yeah.
Why are you perfect for like your exact client?
Because I can like I can, one, help people execute their vision. And if they are lacking a vision, like I have the imagination and wherewithal and like experience to create a vision for them, or like partner with them to create a vision.
Yeah.
And because I love doing it, like the detail and thoroughness of it just like is amazing. I don't know.
Yeah. But I want you to see that you gave the answer, but then immediately out came in with like, I don't know. So your work is just to build the muscle on purpose of the answers that you just gave, like every single day. And this was like exactly what I just went, I think it was Paige that I went through that with, right? Like you've got to literally feel them into your body. Like I am for sure that person. I think about for me, because I came from business development and I'm a business coach. But when I first came in, I was arguing with myself and I'm like, I haven't coached a lot of it. Like, I don't know. I haven't done it before, which is different because you actually literally have done the skill set. And so when I came into coaching, I went through coach training and then I clocked a bunch of hours just to like get practice with those tools. But then I asked myself, how is it actually true that I already have these skill sets? So this is maybe relevant for you, but also for anyone who's listening, who's coming into leveraging a new skill set. You're like leaving like your 9 to 5 where you did something else and then you're coming into this. And I was like, oh wait, when I was in business development, I literally sat with clients and I listened to the words that were coming out of their mouth and I listened to their values and motivations. And it just so happened because I worked at a company, I was mapping them to the sale of something that my company was selling, but I'm like, oh, but as a coach, I'm just doing that same thing, but that client is paying me to get them to their goal. I've literally done this for 10 years, right? But like, I wasn't able to access that when I was telling myself that like, I'm new at this, I can't, right? So just like look for all the places where you actually are totally 100% qualified and you're the best person for your people.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you got it?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Good.
It's just, yeah, repetition, I think.
It is repetition. And this is why when people talk about like journaling every day and people think it's super fluffy, because when I came into like, even though I loved coaching and I knew the impact of it, I was like, I don't have time to journal. I'm trying to make some money. And then I was like, oh wait, I can't do that with my current brain. And to build a new brain, I have to like intentionally cultivate these beliefs, these things. And that is because everything flows down from our brain, our copy, our marketing, our messaging, how we show up. That is the work before like getting your 14 social media posts out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So guys, that is time. Thank you so much for showing up today. I have recorded this and I'm going to send it out so that you guys can watch it back, because I'm guessing there were a few, like our brains aren't that creative, right? So I think you probably were able to see a lot of it today. And now you're going to have access to watch it back when you have drama. And this is the other thing too. I might watch, if you got coached today, watch it back later because you see it from a new perspective when you're outside of it. Yeah. All right, you guys, thank you so much for helping me get the word out about the podcast. I hope this was super helpful and I will see you all on the internet. Bye.